Arkansas. I am going to show you how I'm going to make a couple RV tables, ones that can slide underneath the couch. We've looked online to try to find some that are pretty stable, and we bought a couple and they're just real wobbly. What led to this was one time we stayed in a hotel. We went to a fireworks show in northern Arkansas. We stayed in a hotel and they had this really awesome couch table, I guess is what you call it, slides underneath the couch. It was super stable. I tried to find that thing and there was just nowhere in sight. So what I'm going to do is make my own. I haven't done it yet. This is just my attempt at it. And what I'm going to do is repurpose this EMT garden trellis that I had, because it's got a bend in it already and I need EMT to make this build. And excuse me, the parts I'm going to use are the EMT. I need to make another bend in it. I'll show you all this. I've got a Sharpie to mark the EMT. I've got a cutter to cut the EMT. And then once I get the shape of the actual, I guess you'd call it arms of the table, which will be a horseshoe shape like this, I'm going to mount wood on top of it and spruce it up, and I'll show you all that too as I go along. So the first thing I need to do is I need to bend this EMT. Now I'd already made the bend in it before, and what I need to do is set the height. And the height that my wife prefers is about 27 inches. That's about an inch taller than one of the ones we have currently that's really wobbly. So I'm going to measure out 26 inches instead of 27 because the width of the actual top of the table is a little bit. So the way to do that is you measure it here, and then you put a mark on the EMT that you're going to bend. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the bender and we're going to align it with the star onto this mark. That way we know. Let me do that and I'll bring you back. All right, I put the star on the mark. Now I'm going to lift these up because we want the bend in the same direction. Let me double check my mark here. All right, now what I need to do is I need to make sure that this part right here is level with the bender tool. I need to move it a little bit this way so that it can lift on the other side. Now what I'm going to do is start to bend it like so. Whoop, hit the camera, didn't I? Until this is right at and even a little over 90 degrees. Now when we look at it this way, it is just a shade over 26, which that is fine because the top is 3/4 of an inch, which will make it just right at 27. Now I need to do 2 of these for the 2 legs. So there's the sides. Legs, I guess you'd call it as the best appropriate. And I made another 2 over here because I'm going to make 2 tables, one for me and one for my wife when we travel. Now this is the least expensive top. I got this one from a big box store and I measured it. It's well, didn't measure it, I read it. You can see it's 3/4 inch thick by 24 by 48 inches. So it's 24 inches wide, 48 inches long. So I'm going to cut it directly in half. So it's 24 by 24, and I'm going to use it as a top. I may cut it down smaller than 24 inches wide to 18 or something like that. I got to figure that part out still. So what I need to do is I need to measure on the ends here the width of this board, and then make a mark and a cut. And I'm going to make the cut with this. This is a heavy duty, it's a little more heavy duty than cutting copper tubing for plumbing, and it was recommended also for EMT on some of the reviews I read. So I'm going to use this to cut it to shape and size up my legs more precisely before the actual final cuts and measurements. First thing I did was I put the board on here, and the top, I guess, and I measured it even back here, and then over here I made a mark on both sides where it came out. Now I'm not exactly sure if the bottom legs need to be longer than the top, but I know the top's going to be a little bit shorter so that it's not, you know, right at the very edge. I want a little bit shorter because I have a cap that goes in it. All right, I've made one cut already, and I'll demonstrate how I use this to do that. So you open it up wider than the mark, and you align it with the mark. Make sure it's resting on the two rollers on the bottom. And then you, once it's a little bit snug, start turning it. Just turn it a couple times, tighten and turn. You just do this over and over. It's the same as what you do with copper. I'm not an expert in plumbing at all, but I've done copper before in plumbing. So the little blade on here is not super sharp, but the pressure, rubbing it around and around like this, makes a groove and eventually cuts through the pipe. Now, I'm not wearing gloves on this part, but EMT, see how that cut through like that? EMT, once it's cut, it's got little parts on the inside here where it cut through that are very, very sharp, and you will flat cut yourself. So this tool comes with a piece that you pull out like this, and you just run it around there like this. And after you're handling, if you're going to handle the end, I would suggest wearing gloves, or you're going to tear yourself up, which I've done so many times. This is called a deburr flap, I guess. It deburrs the EMT a little bit. So you can take a piece of sandpaper if you like as well. But I'm going to put caps on the end here, and the caps, I'll probably do a little bit of sandpaper too, but the caps will make sure it'll look really nice, and it'll keep from sharp edges from showing. So that's one done. I've got 3 more to go. There's the 4 legs for the 2 tables. Now what we're looking for is something that's very sturdy. And having the legs just like this without any bracing is just going to not do at all. So I'm going to do 3 braces, 2 that go from the bottom to the top, the bottom leg to the top leg, and 1 across the back. The 1 across the back will keep it from bowing in and flopping over, and the 2 on the sides will keep it stable up and down in the movement. And I'm going to use the very same pipe I've got there. All right, I wanted to say while I'm thinking about it, forgive my look with the old clothes, but I only wear old beat up clothes when I do work outside. I paint into them, I get mud on them, I don't care what they look like, and so sometimes you'll see me in these old clothes. So this is what I'm going to use for the bracing. It's made to go and put EMT in. Let me make sure you're in my camera here. Yep. And so you put EMT in the end here, and it claps on to the EMT. I'm just going to slide it on this particular one, but you can see, well, let me go ahead and take it off so you can see. All right, it's got an Allen head nut that goes through the fitting here, and I'm going to take here, because we're going to do the up and down fitting here, but you take it and they're made to attach to each other. And this design is by a company called Maker Pipe, and they've got a lot of people that are making their own custom builds using this stuff, so that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to take this end and tighten it a little here, and I'm going to insert it all the way into the fitting here, all the way in this way. If I don't have it just right, I can pull it out some before I tighten it. So it's got an Allen wrench head. I don't know which one here. I'll figure it out real quick. It's the very first one I chose, so that's good. And what it does is this part tightens. It makes a tight grip on this and on the EMT itself. And it's just that simple. Really, really secure. So now what I've got to do with this extra piece here is cut it. And I'm going to do that by putting this on here and then making a mark here and then making a cut. That way it's nice and secure from this side to that side, and it still has a little bit of play in here to resize it. Okay, so you've noticed that this is black and the EMT is silver. I bought black on purpose because I'm going to degrease and paint these a semi-gloss, semi-satin or semi-gloss paint I bought for it. Anyway, I'm going to degrease it and paint it so it matches this and it looks better with the overall assembly. So these are the side legs here. And the reason why the brace is so far back is because this needs to be able to slide underneath the couch. And so you can see, let me bring the tripod up here. With this on, this thing is very solid up and down. This will be the top where the top fits, and that'll be on the bottom of the RV floor. So yeah, I'm thinking this is gonna work out really good. It's a lot sturdier than I expected. Now what I need to do is connect the two backs together. There'll be another brace that comes along the top part of this. No, I tell you what, it's probably better to make it across the bottom here, down here lower, because the table is going to keep it separated up top. All right, this is roughed in, of course. Now, let me go over here and show a couple things here. All right, on the bottom here, it's a little bit wide, but that brace across the back is a little bit tight. So I'll bring this in a little bit and tighten it down. Then, whenever I attached the top here to this, that'll prevent it from coming across here, and those tightened in will keep it from coming across there. And of course, this is double the length of what it's actually going to be. It's actually going to come just to the outside of each one of these here. Now, the EMT is going to be painted very close to the same thing as a connector, same color, and it's going to have caps in the end. So that's going to make a very sturdy table, I'm hoping. And yeah, because let's see, I think the cost for these connectors here are about $3.50. So you need 6 of those. The EMT, I can't remember how much a stick of EMT costs. It's probably, I can't even fathom, I guess, what it is right now. It's probably gone up so much. But I've got these little EMT connector pieces. It's a half, goes here and has a screw. So I'll connect it both here and in the back, and that'll keep it really solid for the table. What else? Maker Pipe makes the plugs that go in here. I bought plugs from them. So I'm guessing this table is less than 50 bucks. This piece here was about, the top was about $25, and you half that. So that's for 2 tables. So I'm guessing it's about going to be about less than 50 per table. So I brought it over here. I'm going to start painting, take the connectors off and paint the conduit, degrease it and then paint it. And then while that's drying the first coat, I'm going to cut the board in half so I can make 2 tables. Before I make the second table, however, even though I've done some of the work already, I want to make sure that this is used by my wife and that it is indeed as sturdy and worthy of making it into the fifth wheel. Got some pretty cheap plastic sawhorses here, and they're really light. That's why I buy them. They're really portable, and they do a pretty dang good job for being really lightweight plastic. But I draped a box over it because I'm going to paint, and I just kind of want to avoid the overspray as much as possible. But I took some degreaser and I degreased all the parts, including the black ones, and I'm going to spray paint them. And it'll be a semi-gloss black. And the reason why I'm painting these two is because there's subtle differences between the two. I don't want it to be noticed. Plus, I left the assembly out in it for a few days after I kind of put it together in the beginning, and some of the parts got a little bit rusted, so I'm going to touch that up. So degreased, about to paint. If anybody wants to copy, that's the degreaser I used, and this is the paint I'm going to spray paint, Rust-Oleum 2X. Now, it's going to be a neat challenge to paint this. It's kind of windy today. This board here is 48 inches long. I made a mark 24 inches so I can make 2 tables, and I'm going to cut it in half. So my table saw is not quite, it's a small one I use to make kits, but it's not big enough to handle 24-inch width and rip it through. So what I'm having to do is put a skill saw guide to rip it across there. So that's what I'm going to do. After cutting in 2, I sanded it down, and I made the corners not sharp, so I sanded it down a little bit and sand down the corners here, and all the way around. I've got this old can of gel stain. It feels kind of thick. It might not be usable, I'll know after I open it, but there's no point in buying more stain if I've got something that'll work. So next thing to do is stain it. First coat, didn't have any brushes. I usually have a lot of this kind of stuff laying around, but ended up having to use a rag, and it worked okay. Did some touch-up paint because as I was trying to adjust these and the various parts to make it all level, there was some scratching that happened. What this is here is a spacer here and here, because this has on the top of it would make the top unlevel. So all that I did was I took a union PVC 3/4 inch union, which is a piece that connects 2 3/4 inch PVC pipe together, and it's called a union slip union. And so all I did was I took and cut it in half with a PVC cutting tool, which is kind of like I don't know, scissors of sorts, but it clamps down. Anyway, I cut it in half, and then the round piece, I cut the round piece in half, and so that's what this is here on both sides. These are pretty self-explanatory. It's 3/4 inch PVC, I mean not PVC, EMT conduit straps, which are secured to the bottom of the board here in all 4 places. So what I've got to do here, you can see my footprints are on here. I'm going to clean it up. I want to do a light sanding and then do some little bit of oil on it after it completely dries on the other side, just to make it nicer. It's really sturdy. Let me show you what it looks like flipped upright. On the bottom here, I forgot to mention, you can see here the height of this little connector here from Maker Pipe. So I put little rubber parts here. They have a screw that go in, and they screw into the EMT here. And this is the back. It's on a little bit of a bow here. So I took and I took my little Dremel tool with a little sanding bit here, and I sanded this down just a little bit so that it evens it out more, and it also provides distance so that this isn't on the bottom of the floor. So this is what it looks like. And it's got a little bit of a back here. I think it looks kind of cool. It's nice and wide. It's almost 24 inches wide, 23 and a little 3/4, something like that, because the wood wasn't exactly 2 foot. And this width here I shortened down to 20 inches to make it not quite so wide. Depth, I guess you'd call it. So it's got the legs on the bottom, and this is out of the way so that it can slide up. It's got the width so that it'll fit a person sitting down, and the knees and whatnot will go in between there nicely, and plenty of surface area to put things on. And there she is, the new one I made and the old one that's wobbly, and my cat who can't stand it.